They said it was impossible. They said Burkina Faso, small, landlocked, forgotten, could never dream so big. But what if I told you, this story isn't about electricity? It is about a young captain who dares to gamble $800 billion, not on weapons. Not on mining deals, but on light, and what it means to own it. It is about reclaiming the night for children who read by firelight, and for mothers who give birth in the dark. It is about a war no one declared, but one Traore is fighting, against dependency, against humiliation, against history itself. Because somewhere deep in the Sahel, beneath the scorching sun and the silence of centuries, the turbines are humming. And in that hum is a question too big to ignore. What happens when Africa builds its own future, and doesn't ask for permission? If you believe this is more than a power project, if you feel something awakening, like, comment, and subscribe. Because this is just the beginning. Before the turbines. Before the dams. Before a nation found its voltage and its voice, there were only candles. In Wahiguya, families timed their meals with the sun. In Kudugu, surgeries were performed by flashlight. In Kaya, schoolchildren memorized in darkness. Electricity was not a right. It was a rumor. And that rumor killed futures. Until one man walked into the blackouts with a plan. And said, never again. Fade to black. Transition to part 3, the dams. The wires, and the declaration. A river once flowed quietly through the center of Burkina Faso, forgotten, unclaimed, untapped. Now, it roars with purpose. The Mohand River is no longer just water winding through the Sahel. It is the spine of a new revolution. This is where Captain Ibrahim Traoré laid the foundation, not just for power lines, but for power itself. 11 colossal dams, stretching like vertebrae across the land. Engineered to catch the flow of the river, spin it into volts, and send it dancing across copper veins to awaken a sleeping continent. They do not just block water. They interrupt history. Each dam is a fortress, 10,000 tons of steel and willpower. They rise from the red dust like ancient temples, but they worship no gods. They serve only the people. When Traoré first unveiled the $800 billion price tag, Western analysts laughed. Burkina Faso. A country where entire provinces go dark after sunset. Where villages trade in goats, not stocks. They said it was absurd. But in a world where billionaires build spaceships to escape Earth, Traoré chose to light up Earth itself. The obstacles were biblical. Floods washed out early construction roads. Terrorist groups tried to sabotage dam sites. Global financiers refused to underwrite what they called a national delusion. But Traoré refused to sign on the dotted line of dependency. Instead, he turned to those who knew the price of dignity. Cuba, where decades of embargo forged self-reliance. Iran, whose engineers brought dam expertise and resilience in the face of sanctions. Brazil, where favelas now run on hydropowered light. They did not come with conditions. They came with calloused hands and conviction. And side by side with Burkinabe workers, many of them trained from scratch, the structures began to rise. Concrete was poured by farmers turned foremen. Steel beams were hoisted by women who once sold tomatoes in open-air markets. Electricians who had never touched a motherboard became the architects of a smarter grid. In America, they call it blue-collar pride, the dignity of hard work that builds something bigger than yourself. That pride now echoes across the Sahel. Not in English. Not in French. But in wattage. From the riverbed to the rooftops of 15 nations, the smart grid extends its copper arms, reaching Mali, Niger, Ghana, Nigeria. This is no ordinary grid. It is alive. It thinks. Powered by AI, the system predicts where energy is needed, shifts supply in milliseconds, and stabilizes surges. A school in Accra gets extra current during exam week. A rural clinic in Bamako receives emergency power during childbirth. A tomato farm in Kudugu activates irrigation in the pre-dawn hours. Electricity, once a luxury whispered about in candlelight, is now a rhythm, a heartbeat, constant, predictable, empowering. This isn't charity. It's choreography. Because for centuries, Africa's movements were choreographed by others. Borrow this. Import that. Export your soul. Now, the music is theirs. And for all the critics who said, "But where's the market? But who will maintain it? But will Africans pay?" Traore had only one reply. We do not build for markets. We build for people. And when people receive light, they pay in growth. They repay in dignity. If this idea moves you, that electricity is not just voltage, but voice. That this is not just a dam project, but a declaration. Leave a comment. Tell us where you are from. And if you believe Africa deserves the light it builds, share this video. Because this is not the story the headlines will tell. This is the story of how the continent stopped waiting. What happens when these 11 dams reach full capacity? Traore has plans. Trains, bullet-fast, hydro-charged, connecting Ouagadougou to Lomé, to Niamey, to Dakar. Tech corridors where AI labs hum beside cassava fields. Even exporting power northward, through the desert, across the Mediterranean, into Europe. Yes. Into Europe. Because once upon a time, power flowed one way, from north to south. From civilized to developing. Now, the circuit is closing. And the spark was struck in a country most had written off the map. It took America 47 years to build its national grid. It took Europe a century to electrify the countryside. Burkina Faso is doing it in a decade. And not just for itself, but for 15 nations. This is no longer a plan. It is happening. It is humming. And it is irreversible. Children flipping light switches for the first time. An old woman crying outside a newly lit home. Engineers watching turbines spin, hands on hearts. And Traore, standing at the river, smiling but already looking downstream. Long before the first dam turned water into power, there was only dust. Thick, red, unyielding. It clung to everything. The shoes of children walking miles to school. The hands of farmers digging into cracked earth. The roofs of clinics with no lights, no vaccines, no hope. Burkina Faso was not a blank canvas. It was a scarred one. But scars are not shameful. They are stories waiting for new chapters. And then, something unthinkable happened. Where once stood only scrubland, now stands something whispered in disbelief. Africa's Silicon Valley. They said it with sarcasm, at first. Now they say it with envy. It began not with billionaires or hedge funds, but with turbines. And cables. And jobs. Over 1.5 million jobs have emerged from the $800 billion hydropower project. Not imported. Not outsourced. Homegrown. And not just construction. Not just laying bricks or mixing cement. But coding. Designing. Inventing. A young girl once selling mangoes in Banfora is now a solar technician. A man who once tried to cross the Mediterranean now programs AI load balancers for the smart grid. A refugee from the north now teaches drone irrigation systems in an open-air classroom built beside Dam Number 6. They are not waiting for opportunity. They are building it. In the U.S., there is a saying. The Rust Belt fell. The Silicon Belt rose. But in West Africa, the belts are woven from scratch. With Northwest Wall Street bailout, no Palo Alto legacy. Only red earth, black hands, and golden vision. Over 40 green technology firms have now planted roots in the Mohawk River Valley. They come not with extractive contracts, but with labs. Startups. Ideas. They bring internships for local youth. Accelerators for clean tech ventures. And satellite campuses from African universities long overshadowed by foreign degrees. And while tech blossoms in glass buildings, agriculture explodes in irrigated fields. The dams feed more than grids. They feed mango trees, tomato vines, and rice paddies. Farmers no longer fear drought, they plan for markets. Crops that once withered in the sun now sail to Dubai, Rotterdam, and Lagos. What was survival is now surplus. What was hand-to-mouth is now seed to export. And the changes ripple. Literally. Every dollar earned by a worker fuels a dozen ripples. The tailor buys a new sewing machine. The street vendor upgrades to digital payments. The teacher sends her son to tech school in Bobo Dioulasso. This is not just GDP. It is dignity per household. And it is rising. Other nations are watching. Niger, Sierra Leone, Guinea-Bissau. They are sending delegations. They are asking questions. And they are drafting blueprints. Because the dream is not copyrighted. It is contagious. Traore did not forget the schools. Classrooms once held together by sticks and sand now house LED-lit labs and laptops. The electricity does not just brighten bulbs. It brightens futures. Girls in rural towns are learning how to model solar grids. Boys once drafted to war now draft blueprints. And perhaps the most profound shift. Students no longer memorize colonial history. They are writing their own. Meanwhile, the world stares. Some clap. Some plot. Some panic. Silicon Valley has taken notice. Tech CEOs whisper in boardrooms. Where did this come from? Who gave them AI? Can we buy in, or will we be shut out? Europe wants in on clean energy. Asia sees trade routes. And the West is waking up late. But the people of Burkina Faso, they do not measure success in headlines. They measure it in heat lamps for newborns. In streetlights that keep women safe. In harvests that arrive on time. In hope that no longer feels like a foreign concept. If your heart is stirred. If you see in this story not just numbers, but names. If you believe Africa's rise is not a threat, but a testament. Comment where you're watching from. Share your own story of change. And if this vision moves you, subscribe. Because this is not just Burkina Faso's future. It could be yours too. From red dust to fiber optic cables. From candlelight to code. From a country dismissed to a continent redefined. This is more than a power project. It is an awakening. Power does not ask for passports. It flows. From dam to city, from generator to grain field. Electricity knows no border. But make no mistake, this is not just a utility. This is unity. 15 nations now pulse with one rhythm. From the gold mines of Ghana to the cotton fields of Mali. From Senegal's bustling ports to the dusty plains of Niger. What began as one country's dream now hums through a continental backbone. This is not just a grid. It is a geopolitical declaration. For decades, West Africa's energy story was a patchwork of fragility. Isolated grids. Foreign-owned cables. Diesel plants held together by foreign loans and old lies. And every blackout. A reminder that sovereignty without power was fiction. Now. From one nerve center in Burkina Faso. Power radiates across 15 nations, linked by AI, reinforced by solar redundancy, and governed by African code. This is the unified Sahel grid. And its implications are seismic. It started with a question whispered in Ouagadougou. Why are we buying power from the same nations that colonized us? And so came a decision. If we build light, we control the switch. If we build the switch, we write the contract. If we write the contract, we own the future. Traore did not just build infrastructure. He built leverage. When Burkina Faso flipped on its sixth dam, it offered emergency electricity to Mali during a drought. When Senegal's capital faced cyber attacks on its old grid, the Mohan Corps rerouted stabilized flow within seconds. When Niger's schools lost connectivity, the smart grid reallocated bandwidth and current automatically. This is no longer charity. It is mutual reliance by design. In the United States, interstate grids bind 50 states under one economic engine. When Texas froze, California sent power. When hurricanes hit Louisiana, New York answered. Traore has created Africa's version. But faster. And without Wall Street. Now, the world is paying attention. Russia has offered a joint AI monitoring program. China proposed to co-develop a sub-Saharan battery corridor. India is lobbying for partial access to supply North African data centers. And Europe? Europe is nervous. Because buried beneath this electrical revolution is a message too powerful to ignore. We do not need you to connect. We already are. Investors once obsessed with lithium mines are now eyeing transmission rights. Shipping companies are rerouting ports based on energy availability. And energy is not just fueling lights. It is fueling loyalty. Togo has signed a 20-year cooperative contract. Liberia is offering farmland in exchange for smart grid deployment. Sierra Leone has pledged technical students to train in Burkina Faso's Energy Academy. This is not a pipeline. It is a lifeline. But not all welcome the light. Saboteurs, backed by unknown funders, have attacked cable stations in border zones. Cyber intrusions from foreign IPs have tested the grid's firewalls. Disinformation campaigns claim the power is unstable, un-African, unsustainable. But the lights stay on. The turbines spin. And the people know the truth in their bones. This time, the power is ours. In Lomé, a mother opens a fruit shop that stays open after sunset. In Freetown, a girl finishes her homework without fearing the dark. In Bamako, a startup founder sends code to Europe via African servers, powered by African dams. These are not symbols. These are revolutions. One socket at a time. If you believe that a continent can rise not through pity but through power, that this grid is not just electrical but existential, then tell us where you stand. Comment your country. Tag a friend who needs to see this. Subscribe if you believe unity is not a dream, but a current, flowing now. Let them know. Africa is not waiting. Africa is wiring. The next phase is underway. A $20 billion extension will send power through Mauritania, across the Sahara, into Morocco and southern Spain. Burkina Faso will become not just a regional power, but a global energy exporter. That means influence. That means negotiation on equal footing. That means the narrative has changed. And when the lights of Madrid flicker on in 2032, there will be a turbine in Mohound humming quietly in triumph. 15 nations. One grid. Zero compromise. This is not just about energy. This is about emancipation. They thought it was just a power project. A regional pipe dream. An African leader playing SimCity with hydro turbines. But here's what they missed. The numbers were never just numbers. The $800 billion. Not just an investment. A declaration. A warning. A weapon. Because this grid, this so-called infrastructure, is also a counter-infrastructure. It does not just deliver electricity. It delivers independence. And that is what terrifies them. For decades, Africa's development was choreographed in boardrooms oceans away. Aid packages in one hand, debt contracts in the other. Lights came on when the World Bank said so. And went off when the IMF blinked. But now, a satellite photo of West Africa at night shows something new. A continent refusing to stay dark. And in every illuminated pixel, there's a message. You no longer control the switch. This is not paranoia. It is documentation. Leaked memos from European energy firms describe Burkina Faso's plan as a market disruptor. A U.S. military cable warns of strategic realignment away from traditional partners. The phrase, China-style energy diplomacy, has begun to echo in Washington think tanks. But this isn't China. This is Burkina Faso. And that breaks the algorithm. Even in the education sector, power is shifting. For the first time, African nations are drafting joint STEM curricula, powered by their own grid. Hosted on their own servers, and taught in their own languages. No more reliance on French textbooks. No more donor-funded dependency labs. Burkina Faso is teaching Burkina Faso how to build the future. And if knowledge is power, then this is a revolution without bullets. And here is the real twist. This war is not about oil. It is not even about energy. It is about control of imagination. For centuries, African youth were told, You are the future. But only if the West allowed it. Only if you left. Only if you waited. Now, for the first time, millions see lights come on and realize. The future is not out there. It is right here. And it is already humming. The $800 billion project is not a miracle. It is a blueprint. And every megawatt it generates is matched by a watt of dignity. A volt of memory. A current of resistance. They thought they were tracking numbers. But numbers do not rebel. People do. We were never powerless. We were only unplugged. But now. The switch is ours. The current is ours. And the future will carry our fingerprint. Burkina Faso did not wait for permission. It built. It dared. It connected. And now the world must adjust its compass. Because the light no longer shines on Africa. It shines from it. If this story moved you, do not let it end here. Share it. Comment your vision for Africa. Subscribe to keep the current flowing. Because the next time they ask, who gave you the right? We answer. We gave it to ourselves.